So mate, what would you say would be the number one thing in your mind that contributes to good classroom management?
Well, without doubt, the relationship I have with the students. That can be within my own class, simply trying to get to know the kids a bit better, knowing what sports they're involved in or what teams they follow, or even finding out how they're doing in other subjects can be very handy.
Mm-hmm.
But even I'm conscious of the fact that if I have an extra to take,
Yep.
to make some inquiries about a couple of them, how are you finding the subject? How are you finding the teacher? What are the good things about it? What are the things you struggle with?
Right.
That can be handy. And even crossing the yard from the classroom to the staff room can be an opportunity, albeit a rushed opportunity, to stop and talk to at least one person and say, how's your day doing?
One of the things that I teach, Mark, is the technique called walk and talk. And is that what you're alluding to?
It's almost verbatim. Normally at the end of most classes, there's a couple of boys that want to talk about something, even what they just did on the weekend or what's coming up later in the week.
Mm.
And I'll say that very thing. I'll say, oh, that's great, mate, walk and talk.
Right.
And because I've got to eat my lunch, I've got to refuel for the next lesson. But
Yes.
I know it's important that those times that you do stop or walk and talk, the time you give them is not only good from a human point of view, it does pay dividends in the classroom.
Yeah, I know we haven't prepared for this interview, but what would be one thing that you could perhaps tell us about a strategy or a way that you could develop these relationships? We just talked about the walk and talk and inquiring about them and what footy terms they're into. Would there be other things?
Look, I find even just walking around the class when they're working,
Mm-hmm.
I'll often crouch down to say, how's your day going? And, or it could be a couple of boys might go, they're finished work, so what do we do now? And I'll say just quietly read, and then I might walk over and just ask them what they've got on later in the day. What's the next subject?
Mm-hmm.
And ask them some questions about that, just taking an interest
Yes.
in what they have.
And I remember a few months ago you were telling me about what you did at the gym, like getting there early. Do you mind sharing that with us?
A few of the boys were wanting to use the weight room at school, and the rule is they've got to have a teacher.
Mm.
And of course it's used a lot of the mornings by the football team, but a couple of mornings a week it's empty, and I said to the boys I'd come in and do a bit of weights with them, but also stay back the odd afternoon, particularly on a Thursday when we finished early. And that was a great source of almost camaraderie, where the boys got to see a different side of myself, and I saw a different side of them. In fact, some of them, the only work they've ever done at school was in the weight room.
Yeah.
But it was just, again, it paid dividends for me, not only in the moment, but later on when I had a class, when those boys were in it, that we had some connection prior to me walking into the room that facilitated a much smoother flow to the lesson than I think otherwise would have existed.
Yeah. Mate, I remember there have been times, and correct me if I've understood this right, that you would deliberately target the 2 or 3 or 4 students that would have the notorious reputation and actually move closer to form connection with those boys. And would it be true in saying that when that happened, that you found that the whole class dynamics changed?
I certainly find, when I reflect on my experience at school, it was based on fear of being strapped. Now it's about luring them to learn. The lure is yourself and your approach and your own style. And I find that those boys that we have the most trouble with, they're the guys I try to connect with first. And it can be simply a pat on the shoulder. I can't emphasise the power of, appropriate touch in a young bloke's life from an older male. That it's okay to be like that. So a pat on the shoulder, or just to put my hand on his shoulder when I'm asking a question. There's a connection already. And then obviously through sport, what sport do you play and how you're finding school, depending on the year group, what you're leaving in year 10, what do you hope to do.
Yep.
Just those little things that I store away in my memory
Yes.
and build on next time I have them.
Yeah, very much. One of the other things I teach is like doing an interest survey, you know, so what do they like? And I mean, you're doing that in your own ways, and then you're using that to build rapport.
The other thing I find too that is important is the use of their name.
Uh-huh.
Now, I've made it a practice to learn the names of the hardcore behavioural students at the school. And I make it a practice when I'm walking through the yard to class or on duty to call those boys by their name, just walking past. G'day Bill, g'day Tom, how you going mate? You know.
Even though you don't even teach them.
Don't teach them, but I know I'll come across them in extras, which is a war zone sometimes, and just to be able to have that little affinity, you can see almost their eyes opening like someone knows my name at this place. That's been very, very helpful. And of course, when I'm in a classroom, when they're walking in the room, how you going Tom, how's your day been mate? That's good, we're going to have a good one? Good mate. Or stay close Tom, stay up towards the front Tom. There's just a power in the name, that simple, you know. It seems to melt a lot of the scepticism or cynicism of student-teacher relationships I can see when they come into the room.
All right. Well, thanks very much, mate. That's been really valuable, like it always has been, and I'm sure it's going to help a lot of other teachers when we get it up there.
My pleasure.